Who's your favorite actor? Nicolas Cage.
Hey, what's up guys? I'm here with my buddy Idanmorimmusic, amazing guitar player, composer, artist, and friend.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. You know, a lot of people ask me and talk about the CAGED system. Now, I have a few issues with the system. We'll talk about it in a second. I'll explain why exactly. But before I say what's the problem, I'm going to be sure we're clear about the system, because it is a nice system as well. And it's important to understand what's in it in order to understand what is the issue. So, the CAGED system. So basically the idea is that we're taking our sort of like open string, you know, guitar 101 shapes and moving it around the board to get more chords, which is a great idea. So, for example, this C, we can imagine playing this shape and able to move it, for example here, that would be an E flat chord. The point is that these shapes are movable. So if I were to play the C major triad with the CAGED system, for example, it would be like so. C, and then instead of A, I'm using the shape of A, but for C it would be here. So moving this bar here, so again C, C, the next one will be the G shape, so the shape of this, but here. So I'm just basically playing a C major chord, but starting from this G shape, so CAGED, C, A, G, and then E would be here, like my E shape, only here, with the bar, and then D shape. So this shape basically will go here, so I'll play it here. That's the gist, so yeah, exactly. So C, A shape, G shape, E shape, and then a D shape. Yeah, that's the basic system, right? Now, of course, I think with music, the idea is getting free. We want to see the board and to sort of unlock the fretboard. So it is a very good system to start seeing the fretboard in a more open way. So if you have a C chord, we're talking about, we can move it around and see different chords. But the issue that I have, and I think Idan feels similarly, I believe, is what is the end goal of our exploration? So I'm gonna throw it to you for a second, because I think we have a lot of, no anger, but just like strong feelings. So
yeah, well, like any other system, it is good for a certain utility, but it won't take you all the way. It'll just take you from certain A to a certain B. This really reminds me of that scene in the Matrix where Neo comes to the Oracle for the first time, and there's kind of like a Buddhist monk kid there, and he's able to bend spoons with his mind. And then he tells Neo that, well, actually the secret is realizing that there is no spoon. And so when we accumulate knowledge, we accumulate concepts, and they fill and clutter our mind. Like, CAGED system is just another concept. And it is important to learn because it does take us from A to B. But ultimately, it seems like, as unpleasant or scary as it may sound, we have no other choice but to actually know what we're playing.
Yes.
If we want to fully be free. Otherwise, in the same way that you get caged in one system, you'll get caged in the CAGED system.
Amen. So I think this is the sort of like the root of the strong feelings I have, not against the CAGED system. I think it's a great system, but I think in relationship to shapes. But again, I learn a lot of shapes as well. But, and I think this is what differentiates a lot of, you know, people like Idan, myself, and a lot of our colleagues. When we learn these shapes, we always make sure to connect them to the sound and also to understand why they sound the way they sound.
Right.
If you want to get the most out of this lesson, there is a note-to-note transcription of all this video. Check it out. You know, if I'm able to do this kind of like thing with CAGED system, I've never practiced the CAGED system. I just, you know, somebody told me about it and I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense, I see it. But I can only do that because I see C major and I can imagine physically, you know, and mentally the sound of that. Of course, that was after a lot of practice, but that's exactly where we headed. So we want to understand the CAGED system, but when you are working on the CAGED system, I would really think about the notes. So C, E, G, C. This is what constructs C majors. And therefore, when I go here to the next shape, I'm still aware of this C, and I'm still aware that this is G, this is C, and this is E. And I'm also aware of this shape here, and I'm aware of this is C and E and G and C and E again and C on the top. Now, okay, I can say it quickly because I see the board in the system, which takes time. But the idea when we work on new system, when we work in order to get free, is I think to work slowly and really cautiously, even if it's just one simple shape, but truly knowing that, having a true assessment of the information.
And so I think at this point it's really worth noting that it's not a simple question to ask, what is knowing something? For example, when you say, Rotem just said, it's important to really know the shapes, but okay, so if I know where my fingers go, what more is there to know? I think that's not a simple question to answer, and at the same time I think it's the most important question to answer. And I'll say what I mean. If I'm using my newfound knowledge of chords through the CAGED system, how do I decide which of the new shapes that I learned I play? So for example, this G shape, C, to me, the fact that it has a C at the bottom and a C at the top makes it kind of like silly sounding. It's not a chord that I would enjoy playing or hearing just by itself, but I can imagine a certain context where I'm arriving towards the end of a phrase and the melody really resolved to the one, to the root, to the note C. And in that case, I can imagine how exciting it will be if I play something like melody A, B, C. I can see that chord being satisfying in this context. What I'm trying to say is, it's all about making informed decision. And in order to make an informed decision, you have to understand what it is you're making a decision about.
Yeah, and I will say for from the perspective of the CAGED folks, and again, I'm not against CAGED. I love cages myself. But I think a lot of people would not actually play this shape because it's not comfortable. I think it's visual shapes. That's what I get the when, you know, I saw people talk about that idea. So not necessarily like really to be played in this way, but just like to see it. And I'm not against it, but I agree. I mean, I think it's all context based. The best kind of like notion that I would say in relationship to this CAGED system is know the notes. I mean, as silly and as simple as it can be, is like literally like, okay, this is the E string, so let's make sure that we know that this is C. And even further, you know, from that or connected to that is like, why is this C? You know what I mean? Like understanding the relationship between these notes, because then it's all the same. It's all the same relationship. So understanding something and understanding that, I think, will be really helpful.
Yeah. Maybe it's worth spending a second talking about the strength of the system. For example, one cool thing about CAGED is that as you go through the chords, the shapes connect to each other. So if I start here at C, CAGED, and I move to my A shape, they share the C in the bass. And so there is a visual and technical continuity between the two chords you can notice, and that can help you advance. If I move on to the next, K, E, G, right now I'm at my G shape. Look at it, all these common notes here on the 5th fret, right? And then the next is the E shape. Well, there it is, the bass and the melody and the soprano voice are still continuous. So if you are able to see those connections, then all you have to do is fill out another 4 notes and you've got yourself the whole scale.
Right. Yeah, it's true. It is useful to see these dots. I mean, I am forward with that, to see all that information and to see, you know, from this, to see the major scale, for example, in the context of that C, or in the context of, again, this C here, right? So knowing it's the same thing, this and this, just allows us to see the triads and some of these sounds around the shape. So this is definitely a very useful thing. And again, I worked on it, I guess not knowing is the CAGED system,
right.
Like seeing these triads and shapes and colors. So when somebody was like, hey, this is how the CAGED system works, I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I understand it. But just because I used the same ideas of knowing the triads around the board. Yeah. Yes. We are mentioning we have an issue with the CAGED system, right? And the thing is, of course, we want you to be free. So there's no issue with knowing the CAGED system. On the contrary, we actually want you to know this CAGED system.
As many systems as you can get your hands on. Yeah.
But when you're learning the system, make sure to understand how it functions and not just see it as shapes that are locking and caging you in. See it as notes and truly connect to that. Now, let's make sure we do know the CAGED system so you can actually function within that system. So let's do it in time for a second.
Cool.
Want to do it together?
Sure.
1, 2, 3, C. 1 together. 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. To the G shape. And now to the E shape. 4. To the next shape, the D shape. And let's go continuing to the C shape. And then descending to the D shape. 1, 2, 4. Sorry, I played like a 3, 4 to the G shape. 1, 2, 3 to the A shape. 3 to the. There we are. Playing it things in time and making sure that the pulse is happening and you can lock in with us, literally just that, would be super helpful.
Yeah, if you can pull it out of your hand in real time, then that means that you're able to play it as an idea once you're in a real musical situation. And that's valuable.
Yeah.
Because if you can voice lead and hit the right chord voicing at the right time, that can take your playing 10 levels up, I feel like.
Totally.
Yeah.
And again, it does show you, that this is C, and you're like, that's cool, because I have this note here. What happens if I add this note here? That's B, that's kind of cool. It's C major 7. So like you can, by using these systems, like, that's cool. I can find more chord that I might not have found in a different way. And again, when you're doing it, just really be focused and clear about the sounds of the elements. Thank you so much for checking it out.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you, bro.
Pleasure.
See you guys very soon. Peace out.